Hi, I'm Senator Rollan Roberts, but I'm also a lifelong pastor. I've pastored for 45 years and have spent the last almost 33 years now in the Beaver area around Beckley in Raleigh County. We've had a bill, it's Senate Joint Resolution 4, that has just passed the chamber. And what we want to do is help you to understand a little bit about what was going on with that, because it had to do with churches having the opportunity to incorporate. And this has been one of those bills where people are always afraid when you're dealing with something with church and state, and the confusion that it can cause there and anxiety sometimes. But I voted for this bill, and I think it was a good bill, and was involved in working it up and getting things taken care of. So I don't believe that any church, any religious entity has to worry about this. I think it is a right thing, and I think you'll be interested to be able to stay tuned and listen to the debate on the floor, and then I'll come back and share a few thoughts with you afterwards. Thank you.
Further discussion. Senator from Raleigh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the chairman continue to yield,
Will the
please?
senator yield? The senator yields.
Certainly.
Let me ask you a few questions here to clarify, because I think a lot of folks across the state maybe are confused when it comes to the fears of church and state interaction. First of all, is an incorporated church free of government control?
Yes, I think so. I don't think a church surrenders its autonomy to the government as a result of being incorporated. You know, there is in our state Bill of Rights, in Article 3 of the Constitution, really strong language protecting the autonomy of churches and religious freedom.
So would there be any difference in governmental control between an incorporated church and a non-incorporated church?
I don't think so, with this one possible exception, and that is, and I don't know if the Secretary of State in what they're doing now applies this to churches, but I do know that corporations that form in West Virginia, when a corporation gets a charter in West Virginia, there's a filing they have to do annually with the West Virginia Secretary of State. It's an annual report. And I don't know whether the Secretary of State has exempted churches from that, or whether they have to file an annual report, same as other corporations. So that would be, as far as I'm thinking, I wouldn't consider that, to answer your question, to be governmental control.
Will the managing of the church's property still be the sole responsibility of the church itself?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
In accordance with the corporation's articles of incorporation, bylaws, the church would be free to write its own governing structure. So, as my friend from Raleigh knows better than I do, you have small churches that aren't affiliated with a larger denomination that have wanted to seek and have sought and have obtained now in West Virginia, notwithstanding our Constitution, status as a corporation. There are many other churches which are not incorporated. And the big, for instance, in the Roman Church, the Roman Catholic Church is governed by a diocese structure. So is the Church of England, the Episcopal Church. I'm familiar with a little bit of the conference structure that the Methodist Church uses. I think all of which do not involve a corporate structure.
So just to be totally clear, are churches, is it mandatory that churches be incorporated based on this resolution?
Oh, absolutely not. This resolution just says that our Constitution will permit it. Right now, the Constitution says it can't happen, even though it has been happening for the last 15 years at least in great frequency. We're making our Constitution consistent with the law as we believe it would be espoused for West Virginia based on the federal case out of Virginia. West Virginia, so far as I know, is the only state left that has, in the whole country, that has a provision like this in its state constitution. Nothing would be mandatory. Churches would be free to incorporate or not, and our Constitution would then say that they're free to make their choice about organization and governing structure.
Is there anything about incorporation or this resolution that would cause a church to lose their tax exemption and thereby have to pay taxes?
No. As the senator from Wayne pointed out, there might be things a church should do that could cause it to lose a tax exemption, but it's not incorporating. Just by incorporating, there are plenty of corporations, and now in West Virginia, churches which are incorporated, which have a tax-exempt status, incorporating alone would not cause a church to lose its tax-exempt status.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. President, can I speak to the resolution?
Continue.
Having been a pastor for 45 years, I understand all of the ins and outs of a church and the incorporated versus unincorporated situation. And this makes it legal from our constitutional viewpoint that church pastors and elders and trustees and deacons, however they are arranged in their hierarchy, as well as the members, will not become personally liable in the event of a lawsuit. And so they have the choice as churches to determine whether they want to or not. This is simply doing what all of the rest of the nation. West Virginia is the only state in the nation that does not allow churches to incorporate constitutionally at this point. This is clarifying that. Thank you, Mr. President. Well, now that you've heard all of the information, I hope that you've become educated about what the SJR 4 is all about. And it is important for you to grasp hold of the fact that there's no pushing, there's no forcing of anything. As you probably heard, West Virginia is the last of all of the states in the nation to do this, and it was precipitated because of a court ruling with Virginia, and this has been many years. I will say, just so that you know, that there are hundreds of churches that have already been incorporated in West Virginia, and that is very important for you to understand that they did so even though our Constitution said that it could not happen. Now, why would churches do that by the hundreds in our state? It's because they wanted protection. If a church is not incorporated, they are at risk. Their pastor or whoever's in charge is at risk for personal finances and everything. The elders or deacons or trustees or board members, all of their assets are at risk in a lawsuit if they're not incorporated. And they can go all the way down to the assets of members of those churches and organizations. So quite honestly, churches have been at risk all along. And thank the Lord, nothing has happened. But it could have been very, very devastating for any of the churches in our state. And so people can still choose not to be part of it. But if they want the protections that incorporation gives, then this is something that is made available to them, and it's totally legal. And I think that if there's anybody nervous about it, I think you should just not worry. This is a right thing to do. Churches across the country have been incorporated for many, many decades, a long time, and there's never been an issue or a problem with that happening. So there won't be a problem here in West Virginia either. Thank you.